All right. Yeah, that wasn't a very good mix. I didn't like it. Anyway, okay. So today's articles. There's still a lot going on. People have been talking about the Epstein files that have been released. The thing is those things that have been released are not. Those are not the Epstein files they're talking about releasing. So what those are is things that the Democrats have subpoenaed from Epstein's estate. So it's kind of a workaround. And some information that a journalist was holding on to since like 2016 or something like that. A long time. So that's what those are. So we apparently the Epstein files that they want released are much worse than the subpoenaed information from the Epstein estate and from the journalist that was holding on to that for whatever reason. Okay, so I think today I won't run out of time. We'll be able to go through these articles. Every article link will be in the description below, so you can click on that and read it if you want. I think we'll have time though today. So let's see here. We're gonna go to this screen here. Did it go? Did it go? Let's see. Did it go? Yes, it did. It went. Cool. All right. Let me check this just to make sure. Yep. Cool. All right. So this is USA Today. Here are the 4 Republicans who helped force a vote on releasing Epstein files. Following the release of emails sent by Jeffrey Epstein, Congress has set the stage for a vote to prompt the Trump administration to fully release files on the accused sex trafficker. In the House of Representatives, a discharge position to force a vote on the Justice Department releasing all files related to Epstein reached 218 signatures after Republican Speaker Mike Johnson swore in Arizona Democrat Rep. Angelita, I've heard her name spoken. I don't know how to pronounce it. But on November 12th. I need to remember. Angelina, who won a special election to replace her late father, Rule, promptly began the 218th signatory. Johnson said he'll schedule a vote on the measure in the House next week. Democrats, the minority in the lower chamber, brought 214 signatures to the petition, with 4 Republicans joining the opposition party. Here's what to know about the 4 GOP lawmakers. Thomas Massie. Massie, Republican of Kentucky, has led the charge for the release of the files along with House Democrats. Earlier this year, Massie and Representative Ro Khanna introduced legislation that would force the Justice Department to release the full version of the government's files on Epstein. In July, Massie introduced what's known as a discharge position for the legislation, which eventually reached the necessary 218 votes this week. The procedural step can force a vote on a bill clearing other hurdles in the White House. Massie continually said he thinks it's time for the people involved in Epstein's case to be brought to justice, according to the Louisville Courier-Journal, part of the USA Today network. Well, it's a nice plug-in for USA Today to plug that in. It's part of their own network. Lauren Boebert. So this is an interesting one because Lauren Boebert was invited into a special room. I forget what it's called, but the special room is designed so like no recording instruments will work in it, like no voice recorder on your phone, like a cassette recorder, or video cameras, anything like that. It won't work in this room. And he brought her in there with several other people to persuade her. And as Heather Cox Richardson pointed out, make of that what you will. That's hopefully she doesn't turn her back, because that sounds very threatening. And I wouldn't put it past Trump to make threats, violent threats against someone, especially what could possibly be in these. So hopefully she holds her ground on this, because these need to be released. And, it turns out, guess what? Bill Clinton is in them. And you know what? I don't care. These people need to be held accountable. This is not something that is up for debate. It's there's no room for forgiveness on this. That's the one thing I think universally across culture, country, and all that we pretty much all really fixate and agree on is the human species is you don't fuck with kids. That is a big no-no. That's up there with murder. It's just one of those things where it's like you cannot rationalize this. Boebert of Colorado faced pressure from Trump administration to withdraw from the discharge position. A staunch Trump ally, Boebert received a call from Trump on November 11th, according to the New York Times, and November 12th she met with White House officials about the petition. Boebert, in a social media post, thanked officials for the gathering, but she didn't say if she was going to withdraw from the effort. The Colorado lawmaker ultimately didn't remove her name. She says, "Together we remain committed to ensuring transparency for the American people." So, good for her. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Georgia Republican has historically been a diehard defender of Trump, but in recent weeks, Greene has started to voice louder opposition to the Trump administration. In July, when Massey first announced the discharge position, Greene said in a social media post that she would sign it and that she will never protect pedophiles or the elites and their circles. And there's a lot of things I disagree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on and think that she has been a nut. But I'm glad she's doing this. Same with Boebert. Bobo has been quite an annoying figure in politics over the years, but I'm glad the two of them are doing this. Absolutely glad they're doing this. This needs to be done. Similar to Boebert, Greene was contacted by the White House official who tried to pressure the Republican to withdraw from the petition, according to a September interview with the New York Times. But Greene stood firm. And what's really interesting is Marjorie Taylor Greene actually posted on Twitter, on X, something about, like, I am not suicidal, I believe in God, I will not commit suicide. Basically, if I end up dead, you need to start asking questions. And that's very alarming. I told them, you didn't get me elected. I do the work for you. I work for my district, she told the outlet. Greene said in a social media post that she expects more Republicans to vote for the release of the files next week. Next week, when everyone is forced to go on record to vote to release the Epstein files, I expect the number of Republicans to be a lot higher that actually vote yes, Greene said. But remember, the original 4. Representative Nancy Mace. Mace, who is running for the governor's office in South Carolina, said she signed the petition in solidarity with sexual abuse and assault survivors. So she's definitely not going to back down, because this hits home for her. The Epstein petition is deeply personal, Mace said in a social media post on Wednesday, November 12th. In September, Mace left the House's Oversight and Government Reform Committee, a closed-door meeting with Epstein victims after having a very difficult time listening to their stories. Full-blown panic mode, sweating, hyperventilating, shaking, I can't breathe, Mace wrote on a social media on social media in describing her reaction to the testimony. Mace was seen in tears as she left. In July, Mace said she hoped to see arrests in connection with the Epstein case. I've always been an advocate for women and children. The Jeffrey Epstein case is no different. I want to see arrests, Mace said. I want to see anyone who raped underage girls in handcuffs and behind bars. Behind her 100%. Okay, so then we have this one. So it's just Yahoo News, so who knows what outlet this came from. Yahoo News kind of grabs things from different outlets, but full SNAP benefits must be paid promptly, USDA tells states as government reopens. So Trump is really fighting against this. USDA did this, states put some money on people's cards, Trump is trying to get that money back. Now the USDA is stepping over Trump's orders and saying, no, you need to reopen SNAP and get people these SNAP benefits so people can eat. And the people who are against it going like, oh, free handouts, blah, blah, blah. You do not understand that this impacts the entire food economy. Like stores will close. Products will come off the shelves because they won't be able to sell them. People will get laid off. They will lose their jobs. This will hurt the economy if you remove SNAP. And the thing is, even if you completely got rid of SNAP, completely got rid of the SSA for both disability, retirement, Medicaid, Medicare, all that, you would still be paying taxes because under the Trump administration, we have accrued, by the time he's done in full flex, I think it equals something to about 160 some odd trillion dollars in national debt. Right now, I think we're currently sitting at 36 trillion, possibly 68 trillion dollars in national debt. And the thing is that America's national debt right now under the Trump administration, due to the Trump administration, a national debt that he accrued within like the first 3 months of being in office, is the largest national debt in the world. It is so bad. The banks and billionaires, the rich people that the federal government gets loans from, is actually looking at the United States federal government itself as a high-risk loan. Basically, if the American U.S. federal government had a credit score, it would be in the toilet. And where the federal government gets loans from, the banks and companies and stuff that the federal government, in countries too, that the federal government gets loans from, are actually saying that the United States has become such a high-risk loan with such a bad credit report. They're not wanting to give any more loans out to the federal government, and they're telling Trump, you better come up with this money. Which is why Trump is trying, one of the reasons why Trump is trying to gut these federal programs is because and agencies is because he's trying to find a way to pay off that massive national debt that is the largest in the world in the entire world's history as well. There has never been a national debt as high as what Trump has created. I find this amazing that a lot of Trumpers, especially like people who've been very much into the economy, don't really want to bring that aspect up, but it's absolutely been it's tragic, it's bad, it's really bad, and it could absolutely break our economy, because on top of that national debt, we're paying ICE, basically giving ICE the budget of an entire country's military, which that's not helping. And the whole reason why he's doing this too is so he can also keep the $8 trillion dollars in tax cuts to the top 1%, to the trillionaires like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, and all them. If he wasn't giving that $4 trillion tax cut, it's really interesting, because people who are for getting rid of these programs, you're going to be paying even more in taxes to subsidize rich trillionaires and billionaires and taking away lower taxes that go to subsidize human beings so that they can stay housed and fed. That's literally what's happening. So the Department of and so it's really good on USDA, on the United States Department of Agriculture, staying strong on this, on an actual bill or law or something that they have on that gives instructions on how to pay SNAP benefits and how to fund it. This little cachet that they have of money to fund SNAP benefits in case of a closure or other types of emergencies, and they're saying that this needs to happen. This doesn't just hurt people who need this to feed their families. It hurts the entire economy in its entirety, especially like food markets, and that's not good because that affects literally everybody who lives in the United States. The Department of Agriculture instructed states to promptly issue full SNAP benefits now that the government shutdown is over. Major step forward in bringing weeks of confusion and legal wrangling over the nation's largest food assistance program to an end. State agencies must take immediate steps to ensure households receive their full November allotments promptly. The USDA wrote in a new guidance posted to its website on Thursday. The department also declared the federal funding for the program is now fully available to states. The USDA's new instructions do not entirely end uncertainty around SNAP benefits. However, as of Thursday afternoon, it was still unclear how long it might take for everyone in the U.S. who's enrolled in the program to receive the full allotment of benefits that they are entitled to. How we got here, the supplemental SNAP program, also known as food stamps, became one of the biggest stories of the government shutdown over the past few weeks. The USDA announced late last month that SNAP benefits for nearly 42 million Americans would not go out as scheduled on November 1st because of the shutdown. The decision set off a back-and-forth battle in federal courts. Two federal judges separately ordered the government to use billions of dollars held in a USDA contingency fund to pay out partial November benefits. A few days later, following a Truth Social post in which President Trump threatened to withhold the money until the government reopened. Literally, Trump is saying, I want to keep this money from people who are not going to be able to get food. Which, again, one of the statements is like, oh, why don't they work for food? Well, about 70, or what is it, 30%, 70%. A mass majority of people receiving SNAP benefits do have jobs and do pay taxes towards them. I mean, like, when I talk about my disability case, like I've been paying taxes into the SSA my entire working life, which started at age 15. And part of the whole part of paying into the disability system, into the SSA, is for one, when you get old enough to retire, you retire and you receive an allocated amount of money each month. But also in the unfortunate event that you become disabled. And the thing about the group of disability is that people can say it doesn't affect them, but the fact is that everyone will eventually become disabled. You're just not in the disability community yet. Everyone eventually will become disabled via age, accident, and damage, health reasons. Eventually, you will become. So having that program is very, very important. We can't just have a system where every time somebody gets to a point where they can't work anymore, you just toss them out on the street to rot. This is not a sign of a healthy society. There's a video I want to show you by Richard Wolff where he talks too about the economics, because I really want to hit it home just how bad economically the United States is in, and Richard Wolff is an economist and he goes over that quite well. Withhold the money, Okay. The government appealed that decision, arguing that the court did not have the authority to force it to pull funding from other parts of its budget. The case eventually made its way to the Supreme Court, which put the order on hold. That hold was still in place when Trump signed a bill to reopen the government. The Trump administration formally withdrew its appeal on Thursday because the end of the shutdown had rendered the underlying legal dispute moot. Huge differences from state to state. Individual states took drastically different actions amid the dramatic swings in the status of SNAP at the federal level. 3 states, Virginia, Delaware, and Vermont, paid for November benefits out of their own budgets. Most states didn't have the funds to do that, however, and instead provided millions of dollars to food banks to help ease the risk of hunger while the shutdown dragged on. This is one thing. Another thing, these people who are against SNAP and other social safety nets, the small amount of socialism the United States actually has, is that what is federal is retirement and disability. But like all the other stuffs, like Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, utility assistance, all that sort of stuff, HUD housing, all of that operates differently according to each state. And what the government does is it gives them an allotment of money, and then how the state decides if somebody needs SNAP or utility assistance or Medicaid, Medicare, and whatever, it's up to that state. So they the state gets subsidies from the federal government. And see, a lot of states, they use that money to build. Some of them are very, very corrupt. They use that money to build suburban communities or like private communities instead of actually putting it towards the programs to help feed people, keep them housed, and stuff like that. A lot of those tend to be red states, and it's a real big problem. And they say, oh, but if we build this private housing community, that helps house people. It doesn't, though. It just gives rich people new houses to buy. It doesn't get people into housing that need to get back on their feet because something has happened to them in their life or they end up on the street, there's various causes. If you look at the homeless population, you can break them down into different categories. Like, there's a certain percent that's LGBTQIA plus who become homeless because they've been disowned by their parents, some as young as age 12, and put on the street because of that. There's a certain percentage of homeless people who have aged out of the foster care system, and then CPS and aged out. Nobody adopted them, and they end up homeless because of that. You have another percentage of the homeless population that consists of veterans, many of who are disabled mentally and physically, for a variety of different reasons. And then you have a certain portion of the homeless population who are people who are disabled that they don't have friends, family, and community that come forward and help them and to carry on the years and years of fighting for disability. So they, end up losing all their money and end up living, going on the street and being homeless. You do have, you have people, the percentage of people who are homeless because, they were in a car accident and they're just one problem away from being homeless because money was so tight. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. There's a very, very small percentage. It's a tiny, 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 itty-bitty little fraction of people who are homeless because they want to be vagabonds or nomadic or whatever you want to say. That's a very small percentage. Most people who are homeless do not want to be homeless and would do pretty much anything to get out of it. When the ruling ordering of the government to pay out full benefits was issued last week, a number of states immediately moved to distribute full benefits before the government's appeal had been filed. Another group of states gave out partial benefits around the same time, while others still have not provided any SNAP benefits at all. So far, SNAP recipients in 19 states have gotten their full November benefits, and recipients and 16 others have received partial benefits, according to a tally by the Associated Press. So here we have, so even Texas did it. Louisiana did it. Kansas didn't. Missouri did a little bit more. Missouri tends to be a little bit more lenient in giving out social safety net things and programs than Kansas a lot of the times. So, yeah. The states that haven't given out full benefits can start doing so thanks to the USDA's new guidance, but that could take longer in some places than others. The biggest challenge will be in states that have already distributed partial benefits, experts told Associated Press, because they'll have to go through the difficult process of determining how much more money each individual recipient should get and how to get it to them. The USDA's guidance also urges states to begin the process of upgrading systems and updating the state procedures so they can be in a position to seamlessly distribute partial benefits in the event of a future shutdown. The earliest that another shutdown might disrupt SNAP benefits is October of next year. The bill that intended the shutdown provides only funding to keep most of the government open until January 30th, but SNAP was one of a handful of programs that had its funding extended beyond that date. The program would continue operating as normal even if another shutdown started at the end of January. So there's absolutely no reason why people should not be getting their SNAP benefits according to this. Absolutely none. The funding is there. There's a program, an initiative in place in case anything happens to where people will get SNAP benefits no matter what. I'm going to go to this screen because I'm going to open up. I'm going to try to look for this this Richard Wolff video. I want to share it with, because it's important that people understand where we are economically. And the thing I like about Richard Wolff is he's more of a leftist. So here we go. So we're going to go back to this screen. Here we go. And we're going to play.
Welcome, friends, to another Wolf Response. I want to call this one the inheritance tax, or the estate tax as it's called in the United States, an immense scandal. Let me explain what I mean. And I'm going to do that by reminding you what the whole point and purpose of an inheritance or estate tax always was. Here in the United States, there's been an endless effort by super rich people to get rid of the inheritance and estate tax. Why? Because they actually have large inheritances because they're rich and they want to leave it to their children so that they'll be rich. Okay, here's the problem. And that problem is as old as civilization. Either you have a society where everybody starts more or less in the same situation. You know, everybody has, quote, equal opportunity, or you don't. You can have a level playing field. That's when we all start with about the same resources, and then we achieve as much as our capabilities and our energy and our attention enable us to achieve. Or we don't. What do I mean by or we don't? We allow some people to start with a lot, to start with all the resources they could imagine, and maybe many more, to help them at every step of the way, to do better than the people who are starting with no resources, or very few. If we have unequal resources, we have unequal opportunity. And then the outcome means that those who had more resources can often outdo those who had none. Not because they worked harder, they didn't, but because they had more when they started. They weren't on a level playing field. Theirs had advantages. The point and purpose of an estate tax, or an inheritance tax, or what at the end...
This isn't the one I wanted. Damn it. Here we go. This is the one I was looking for.
Welcome, friends, to another Wolf Response.
This one, like last week's, is called Government Shutdown, the Real Story.
This is the one I wanted.
I want this time to look at it all from the standpoint of what, at least in principle, Mr. Trump is trying to do. Because it is what Mr. Trump believes the donors to his effort, his supporters, want him to do. What is that? Well, one of the key things in their mind is something they're worried about. For the last 30 years, the United States has borrowed vast sums of money, far more money than it borrowed in the century before that or the century before that. It's almost as though you could say, for the last 30 or 40 years, the country is like a jalopy, not working on the gas anymore, just working on the fumes of the gas they used to have in the tank. We've been borrowing money. First it was tens of billions, then hundreds of billions, and now trillions of dollars. More than $1 trillion in a single year, sometimes more than $2 trillion in a single year. So our national debt has accumulated all the way up to $36, $37 trillion. Hard to get your head around that. We are the most indebted country in the world in terms of how much we owe. We are an extraordinarily in-debt-ridden country. It's so bad that over the last year or two, the 3 agencies in the world that happen to be American, who measure the creditworthiness of all borrowers, governments, corporations, and so on. And by the way, their names are Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch. All 3 of them, separately, independently, have reduced the creditworthiness of the AAA rating, the best you can get, down to AA. It was a way of making very clear that the United States has borrowed so much money that anyone thinking of lending more money to the government, and that means buying the Treasury bond.
See, this is one of the things I talk about. It's really sad that people who are on the left, who are anti-capitalist, the socialists and type people, we always end up having to explain capitalism to the people who want capitalism because they don't understand how the system they're advocating for works. I think there are pro-capitalist people at the top that know how it works, but they're in it for their own self-invested interest. And the thing is that the system that we're running on is just inherently unsustainable, where eventually it's going to hit a ceiling where, because of this desire for perpetual profit growth and the plateau of sales and transactions, you end up having the only way to continue to make more money than the previous years to increase prices, lay people out, reduce the workforce and stuff. Eventually you hit a ceiling where the cost is so extravagant that pretty much the entire working class, from $0 a year all the way up to $800,000 a year, which is where the tax bracket cutoff is, where we stop taxing people based on wealth, is at $800,000. That's where the tax cap is. That's 90% of the country can't afford this stuff anymore, and so Then that turns into a self-defeating issue, because the companies who are trying to make more profit than they did last year, it doesn't matter that they increase their cost even more, because there's no one left to pool from, and every time they keep increasing it, the pool of people that they can draw this income resource from gets smaller and smaller and smaller, until eventually they can't profit at all, no matter how much they increase it, because there's just no one that has the ability to afford it. And that ends up causing a complete economic, societal, governmental collapse. And there's places you can look at as examples of this, like Argentina. You can look at Idi Amin's Uganda. I mean, this creates a collapse of your society, of your economy, just a complete just break. And the fact that we owe this much money and the American dollar is depreciating in value, the fact that nobody's backing up their currency in American currency anymore, which they used to do, this is all very scary. If we continue on the path that we're on, it's truly unsustainable. It literally will just get to a point where nobody can afford homes, nobody can afford health care, nobody can afford cars, nobody can afford food. Literally everything will just become too expensive, and 90% of the population will just not be able to, and that 90% will even grow to encompass those who are above that $800,000 tax cutoff into the top 10%, and then the top 7%, and then the top 1%, because they will not be able to continue to make profit at all. The top 1%, though, has amassed so much wealth that they would be able to survive many generations of kin without finally joining the rest of us and living in a broken country where we just have to make houses out of whatever garbage we can find on the street. And you will, I mean, literally, we will just be living in a collapsed society. That's the path that we're on if we don't stop doing this.
Funds and securities, which is how the federal government borrows. Anyone thinking of doing that is being told, think again. And those creditors of the U.S. have told American governments very clearly, we are not willing to keep lending to you. You're borrowing too much. What does that mean? I want to explain that so everyone is clear. What the creditor means, who says that to Uncle Sam, or today to President Trump, what they're saying is, look, we know from a long history of countries that borrow too much, that at a certain point, their people rebel. Why? Because the government cuts public programs that people need to use
Argentina,
to pay
Javier Milei,
to pay interest on the debts they owe. And the more debts, the more of the money that they have to collect each year to pay back a portion of it and to pay interest on it. So sooner or later, the time will come, and I'm going to tell you in a few moments that it's already here for the U.S., when the government is cutting back on things people need and want. And pretty soon, those people who get denied, like all the people that are on the SNAP program, the program that we used to call food stamps, 42 million of our people rely on them. Those people are going to understand, if not today, well then tomorrow, that the money the government is saving on paying for their food stamps is being used.
When he says, if not today, then maybe tomorrow, like he's being serious, is because like people who think, oh, it doesn't affect me, I don't get any of these subsidies. Like, do you want to retire someday? And then it'll affect you. You could become disabled someday, and then it'll affect you. And the thing is these things impact our economy. They impact the economy of healthcare. They impact the economy of all kinds of things within the healthcare, from like pain management clinics, hospitals, hospice, long-term care facilities, retirement centers, on and on and on and on. It'll impact the economy of grocery stores, of the food market. And things collapse, things close down, people get laid off, there'll be mass closures, all of vacant buildings all over the place. If you look at any country where this has happened in, that is what you see, is just miles and miles and miles within a city, just stores that are completely empty, boarded up windows, nothing in them, everyone's unemployed, nobody has any money. And I mean, it's bad. Like in Uganda, it got so bad, ships that brought in goods into Uganda stopped doing it because the Ugandan people, they had no food, no goods in any of the stores, so they started ransacking the ships at the entry ports. And taking all the resources directly from just stealing it, because nobody had any money. There were no jobs. Nothing was open. Everything was just closed and shut down. And so they were just ransacking the ships. And so they stopped delivering, and then they were like, it's like, oh, fuck. What do we do now?
Instead, to service the debt, to pay interest to those who have lent to the government. And of course, who lends to the U.S. government? Among Americans, big corporations, banks, insurance companies, and the richest individuals. The rest.
And one of those banks is the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not a federal agency. It is a private bank.
Most of us are not in a position to lend big bucks to the U.S. government. And foreign countries lend to the U.S. government. Japan and China rank number 1 and 2 in terms of lenders. And they're not willing to lend anymore. And American banks and insurance companies they don't want to lend to somebody who may at a certain point say, I'm really sorry, I can't pay the interest I owe you, because if I do that, I won't have money for the food needed by the people who vote for me. And at that point, the politicians will be in a tough spot. And the creditors don't want to come out of the short end of that little situation. So they're saying to Mr. Trump, you got to cut back on spending, and you got to do it in a big enough way that we see you're serious. You kind of got to show us, Mr. Trump, that you're willing to stick it to your own people to save money to pay our interest and to pay back the loan we've made to you.
I don't think it's just that. I think like Trump is sticking it to the people because he literally is just cruel. I don't think he has any problem running over people with a bus. I don't think he cares if you are a supporter of his or not. He has no problem just doing that. Maybe this has something to do with it, but like just in general, I don't think Trump cares. Like I think if he's asked to hurt the American people, whether they support him or not, he's totally willing to do that because he doesn't care. I think the only person Trump cares about, Trump seems like a true narcissist. He seems to only really truly care about himself and his own self-interest 100% all the way.
They put that to Mr. Trump, and he didn't have a minute's hesitation. Stick it to the American people, watch me. So here's what he did. In the early weeks of his government, after he took office on the 20th of January, he did a piece of political flim-flam that was truly stunning. Together with his buddy and financier, Mr. Tesla Automobile, Elon Musk, he foisted on us the Department of Government Efficiency. They were not efficiency people. They were firing everyone. They went through whole departments, like the education department, to fire everybody. They went to the foreign aid program of the United States and fired everybody. That's not making things efficient. That's finding an excuse, efficiency, to fire tens, then hundreds, then of thousands, and then millions of people from federal jobs who you don't have to pay anymore. He's sticking it to the federal employees to save money that he gives to the creditors. After 4 months, we began to feel as a nation that we didn't have a government in Washington taking care of business. And it began to look bad. And there began to be consequences that made Mr. Trump look like he was doing something that wasn't very good. And even Elon Musk said goodbye to that program once it turned sour.
And on Elon Musk, there's a lot about that. Like Elon Musk is only rich on paper. He's rich off of taxpayer dollars. All these little projects that he was subsidized for the rockets, that the money that was supposed to be allocated to NASA was reallocated to Musk because, I can build rockets that'll go to the moon and be able to take off on the moon. We're going to go to Mars, blah, 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 blah. So far, Musk has not even been able to get a rocket up into the stratosphere. The furthest he has gotten a rocket is to the Indian Ocean, and the only amount of weight of cargo that the rocket could carry in order to launch was a banana. So Musk has gotten a banana to the Indian Ocean. That is the furthest he's been able to get his rocket to go. And you would not want passengers in this rocket because you would be burnt to a crisp. Even that rocket, upon re-entry, when it landed, it fell to pieces because it burned up. Every single time you see one of those rockets blow up, that is about $10 billion of taxpayer money that just went boom. So basically the taxpayers are funding $10 billion fireworks, like overpriced, over extravagant fireworks. $10 billion a piece. Same with this Hyperloop. That was government subsidized because the whole idea behind these subsidies is that he's supposed to bring a technology that's supposed to put America forward, give jobs, and do something that's going to be beneficial to society. And so that's why the government subsidizes them. So this is why he was subsidized for the rockets, and that's gone nowhere. And we just keep wasting money on it instead of giving it to NASA, NASA can actually get a rocket into space. NASA's actually sent people to the moon. NASA sent rovers to Mars and gathered data and information. NASA actually knows how to do that stuff. Musk doesn't. So there was the Hyperloop. That didn't go anywhere. Where the Hyperloop was is now literally a parking lot. Like, literally a parking lot. Like, the Hyperloop isn't there anymore. It's concrete with lines in it for cars to park in. It's literally a parking lot now. Because according to, like, if you talk to any engineer or physicist or nuclear physicist, they'll tell you what he's trying to do technologically just won't work. But the thing is we have technologies that are capable of doing what he's trying to do, that do work and are very efficient, that we could be doing with our tax dollars, and that would actually, be able to get people across the United States very, very quickly, without using fuel and I mean, the bullet trains and maglifts and stuff like that. But so then you had his convoy of semi trucks, which would have caused a lot of people to be like basically commercial driver's license would be dead at that point. They would not be necessary. You would not need truckers anymore. So that industry would be dead. But that was one of the reasons that was subsidized by the government, is having self-driving semi trucks, and again, he has not delivered on that. The underground freeway system, again, not delivered but subsidized for it. So like every single one of these projects that Elon Musk has come up with, the government has given him subsidies, where he's walked off with he's at trillions of dollars now of taxpayer dollars, and nothing to show for it. He hasn't even expanded on any of those projects. Like the underground freeway place is just closed off. They didn't even try. The Hyperloop is gone. There was a roadster that people, 1,000 people prepaid for a roadster, which, according to Elon Musk, was supposed to be able to get from the west coast to the east coast of the United States on a single charge and go from 0 to 120 in like 0.05 seconds or something like that. Such a car breaks the laws of physics. Like it scientifically is just impossible. And the entire car, to make it from the east coast to the west coast off a single charge, the entire car would have to be a giant battery. Like it would just a battery on wheels, which, given a lithium battery on wheels, you're talking about basically a giant bomb on wheels. You would not want to be in that thing. It could very, very easily just catch on fire and explode. So 1,000 people pre-ordered one of these roadsters at $250,000 a pop, and that was all the way back in 2016. And so the people who pre-ordered these roadsters, they're yelling at Musk now that they want their money back, because he doesn't even have a blueprint on the table, and he's just wandered off with those people's money. And then they tried putting together a class action lawsuit, and then when Musk was up there with Doge, when he broke apart the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, it destroyed those people's ability to hold Musk financially accountable for scamming and conning them out of $250,000 for something that he can't deliver on. And that's why under Biden, if Kamala had been elected, Musk would have been investigated by the DOJ, interrogated by Congress, because of all these subsidies that he's received in government taxpayer dollars for projects that have gone absolutely nowhere. And his plans for like SpaceX are bananas. And the rocket engineers and stuff from NASA, when they looked at it, they said that this is bananas. This is bonkers. This will never work. Like anyone who's had any kind of training could tell you this. So that's Elon Musk there for you. So that's where a lot of our money is going, is to Elon Musk. The only thing that he has that makes money is his Twitter X, which gets money from ad revenue and people who buy subscriptions, so they can have that little check mark next to their name and write longer write paragraphs. And then Grok, which has generated absolutely no revenue at all. It's actually been a drain on revenue. And then his Tesla, which Tesla stock is for some reason not plummeting, even though it should be. The cars are crap. they catch on fire. The panels are glued to the damn thing. Yeah, there's just all kinds of problems there, and that's it. Other than that, there's nothing under Musk that gives him continual access to financial gain. It's all coming from us, the taxpayers, for that SpaceX crap, so he can spend $10 billion on overglorified fireworks.
But Mr. Trump knows his business. So as soon as he couldn't play the flim flam of government efficiency, he came up with a new flim flam: shut the government down. That goes one better than laying off large numbers of workers. Simply shut it down. That lays off all workers. Many have not been paid for 40 days or more. And if no budget that they have to spend, the government is shut down. And he saves more money that he can use to pay off the creditors. And he can say to the creditors, which is why he's doing this: look, I'm taking steps to improve the finances of the government. I'm raising money by tariffs, at least a little, and I'm lowering spending by sticking it to federal workers and then sticking it to all the people who benefit from governmental programs. But then again, after a few weeks, this doesn't turn out to look so good, and Mr. Trump is stuck again. What happened this time? Well, let's see. 42 million people who depend on the SNAP program are not getting enough to eat, and everybody sees it, and everybody says, how is it in a rich country like the United States that we can't provide food for our poor people and on a scale like this? And what is Mr. Trump going to say? He just spent a fortune on ICE and a fortune on military. He's just squeezed the American people to free up the money to pay back the lenders, the rich who lend to the U.S. What's he going to do? How's he going to justify that? But here was the really big one. It turns out the government, which does so many things to keep this economy going, including borrowing all that money, it's the government that makes it possible for the airplanes to come and go from airports, not to crash into one another. And if the government isn't paying the air traffic controllers because it's shut down, well, guess what? The air traffic controller, unpaid, wondering what's going to happen, how long he's going to be unpaid, starts looking for another job. What else can he do? For a while, he'll have 2 jobs, or maybe 3, and he'll be real tired. Just what you don't want in an air traffic controller. Or he'll quit, or he'll say he's sick, so he can look for another job. And we're having trouble at our airports. And airlines, fearing that they'll be sued if there are crashes, cancel flights, delay flights, reroute flights. And that affects everybody who uses the airport. All of those rich people, they're major users. All of those corporate executives. All of those government lucky mucks. Now they begin to feel the pain that they're pushing on all the rest of us. So they have to bring that to a stop. Wow. And the Democrats, who don't oppose hardly anything Mr. Trump is doing, who could mobilize everybody to oppose it and really make a difference. The Democratic Party is still the party of at least half the people. It could really make an opposition, but it doesn't do that. So the accusation of complicity with the Republicans fits. And after 8 senators from the Democratic Party caved in and gave the Republicans what they demanded to stop the shutdown government, the Republicans are exposed and have to do it. So Mr. Trump will now have to find another flim-flam. After the Department of Government Efficiency came and went, and the government shutdown came and went, he'll come up with another way to cut back the money being spent on what the people need, so that he can use that money instead to pay back the super rich the money they lent to the U.S. government and to pay them interest for making the loan in the first place. If ever you wanted an example of how the government serves a minority at the expense of the majority, you're living through it right now. You're being required to pay the usual taxes while getting less government service. And you know who benefits? Corporations and the rich. The first thing Mr. Trump did was the big, beautiful tax bill, which cut their taxes. And spending on them is not what's being cut. It's food stamps. It's help to colleges and universities. Only when a little of the cutback bounces back and hurts them at the top do we suddenly get an, oh, it's got to stop. The real message to Mr. Trump: be more careful, Mr. Trump. Your job is to squeeze only at the bottom and in the middle and to serve the top. And you Democrats, shame on you for not being the opposition to that sad, long-lasting policy of the United States government. If interventions like this strike you as useful, as a good part of a national conversation.
So I think that's a really important message that I wanted people to see. So where are we at? Okay. Yeah. Here we go. We're at this one. This one. Okay. Senators This is about the senators who distance themselves after giving themselves a nice payment and disguised in a bill. Senators distance themselves from the controversial payout provision. Senate Majority Leader John Thune thought he was giving Republicans gift when he secured provisions in the shutdown ending government funding package that could award hundreds of thousands of dollars to senators subpoenaed as part of former special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into President Donald Trump. It turns out several of them don't want it. Of the 8 known Senate Republicans whose phone records were subpoenaed as part of Smith's probe into Trump's 2020 election interference, only one so far, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, has announced definitive plans to take advantage of the new legislative language that would allow senators to sue the federal government for $500,000 or more if they discovered their electronic records were seized without notification. Remember what we just talked about in the national debt. So senators being able to sue the government because they don't want to be investigated for crimes that they've committed. $500,000 more national debt. Here we go. Oh yeah, we're also getting rid of pennies. The American dollar is depreciating in value. Where do you think this is heading? Oh, definitely, Graham said in a news conference after the passage of the government funding bill. And if you think I'm going to settle this thing for $1 million, no, I want to make it so painful no one ever does this again. I'm going to pursue through the court system remedies. Others, however, were less enthusiastic or more opaque about their intentions, and public comments, social media posts, or statements to Politico over the past few days. The 7 remaining Senate Republicans declined to publicly commit to seeking compensation for being singled out by Smith as the Democrats pummel the GOP for endorsing a taxpayer-funded windfall, and fellow Republicans in both chambers decry the provision as poorly conceived. I think Senate provision is a bad idea, said Senator Josh Hawley, and representative from Missouri. He's pretty far right too. And a statement: there needs to be accountability for Biden DOJ's outrageous abuse of the separation of powers, but the right way to do that is through public hearings, tough oversight, including the complicit telecom companies, and prosecution where warranted. It could all soon be moot. Republicans in the House were enraged over the provision's inclusion, and Speaker Mike Johnson responded by promising to hold a vote for a bill that would repeal the legislative language. The effort is expected to pass overwhelmingly with bipartisan support. Johnson told reporters Wednesday that he had spoken with Thune about the issue earlier in the day, and that he communicated his disapproval of his Senate counterparts' maneuvering. It's not clear what Thune plans to do with the bill, assuming it passes the House. A person familiar with the provision's introduction into the funding bill, who was granted anonymity to discuss private conversations, said that Senate Republicans requested that Thune include the language in the legislation. The person cited a strong appetite among the GOP to pursue accountability for the so-called erratic Frost investigation, a Biden-era probe that Republicans say constituted a weaponization of the Justice Department. But it turns out the provision in the funding bill related to Smith's probe is already creating political liability for Senate Republicans. Representative John Rose, Republican of Tennessee, who is running for governor of his state next year, quickly introduced legislation in the House that would reverse the provision. His challenger for the Republican nomination, Senator Marsha Blackburn, later said she would vote for a bill to undo the language, but expressed a desire to take some legal recourse as a Smith target. Senator Blackburn's plan has always been to seek a declaratory judgment, not monetary damages, to prevent leftists from violating the constitutional rights of conservatives. I don't care, conservative or left-wing, we shouldn't be violating anyone's constitutional right to privacy. And I have had a big issue with tech giants being able to, like there's no laws on local and federal police or law enforcement agencies can literally buy data gathered on us by social media companies like Meta, Facebook, like whatever runs WhatsApp, Signal, all that sort of stuff. They can buy information on us from just about anything that collects any kind of data on us, because there's no law preventing them from doing that. And some have even engaged in what they call predictive crime, which in and of itself should be a constitutional violation, because you should be innocent till proven guilty. And you shouldn't be searched and seized on anything without a warrant. So I've been mad about that for a long time. I think there should be provisions. And I think also we should use antitrust laws to break up these monopolies that these companies have, which a lot of ISPs have. Even Senator Ron Johnson, who is co-leading the investigation into Smith's probe with Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley, said that while he stood by the provision, he wouldn't act on the cash opportunity. I have put no plans at this time, he said. If I did sue, it would only be for the purpose of using the courts to expose the corrupt weaponization of federal law enforcement by Biden and Obama administrations, with the full cooperation in our congressional investigations from the Trump DOJ and FBI that shouldn't be necessary. This to me, like, it just sounds like Republicans broke the law and they don't want to be held accountable for it, and it's irritating. It does seem to be that the Democrats are held to a much higher standard. Anyone on the left is held to a much higher standard, including Democrats who are not on the left, than Republicans. Like, these Republicans do all this illegal shit, and everybody's like, oh, but people, aren't perfect, and excuse. And then, some Democrat gets caught, smoking a bong, and they're like, oh my God, the public outrage. Okay, Good Morning America. Here's what an Epstein files vote in the House could look like. Let's see what this has to say.
His new documents raise questions about whether President Trump was aware of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Trump, tight-lipped, refusing to answer questions about why he won't release the Epstein files.
Mr. President, why won't you order the FBI to release the Epstein files?
The newly released messages, part of thousands of documents from the Epstein estate released by the House Oversight Committee, mentioned Trump repeatedly. Shortly after he launched his presidential campaign in 2015, Epstein told at least one reporter that he had dirt on Trump and was willing to share. Writing, quote, "Ask my houseman about Donald almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool, and he was so focused he walked straight into the door." Epstein then posing the question, "Would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen?" In one 2018 text exchange, the context of which is unclear, Epstein wrote to an unidentified person about Trump, "I am the one able to take him down." Trump and Epstein were friends for more than a decade.
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights.
After Epstein's arrest in 2019, Trump said he hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. He insists he broke off the friendship when he learned Epstein and his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell were luring away young female staffers who worked at Mar-a-Lago.
He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it.
The White House insists he did nothing wrong.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong.
But Democrats aren't convinced.
I think the emails that were released today, again, just raise so many more questions.
And now 218 lawmakers, including 4 Republicans, have signed a petition forcing the House to vote to release the full files. The final signature coming from Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, sworn in just Wednesday after a 7-week delay.
The timing of the 23,000 emails that were also released right around this time really put an exclamation mark on the need to have this transparency and for all of the files to be out in public.
Now, the Speaker says that vote is going to happen next week, and we're likely to see something that we rarely see here in Washington. We are told dozens of Republicans are expected to break with the president and call for the release of these files, something that many Republican voters have wanted for some time now. But of course, even if it passes in the House, the fate of this is unclear in the Senate, and it seems unlikely the president...
So while that was playing, I went ahead and read through this. So basically, cut through the fat, is that this vote will allow like the files to be downloaded, looked at it by all kinds of committees, organizations, and all that sort of stuff, like PDF files. District attorneys can look at it and decide if things need to be redacted or what things can be available to the public and whatnot based on various aspects. But there will be people who will have just on precedent just complete access and no redactions. It talks about how, like, if they vote yes on this and it comes to pass, then we could see it released as soon as Tuesday, but the bill would go to the Senate, but the Senate Majority Leader, like also that too, what is his name? Mike Johnson. Yeah, He's trying to make it so that it doesn't go through. He really doesn't want the bill to go through, which is gross. He's, essentially protecting pedophiles, which people don't remember, but I was reminded of this, is that Mike Johnson was defending, I can't think of his name, the guy from Florida that who had paid a middle school girl to have sex with him so that she could pay for her teeth to get done. So that's come out. Mike Johnson was trying to protect him, so a guy who's participated in prostitution and sex with minor and pedophilia. Matt Gaetz, that was the name of the guy from Florida. So Mike Johnson was trying to protect Matt Gaetz. Now he's trying to protect whoever's in this Epstein list. So Mike Johnson apparently doesn't have a problem with pedophiles. So if it passes the Senate, the bill would then go on to President Donald Trump, who would most likely veto it. It would take 2/3 vote in both the Senate and House to override the president's veto, and boom, the Epstein files will be released. This is about the TSA. CBS. Don't necessarily trust CBS. They kind of bent the knee to Trump a little bit, so they could have a lot of bias towards Trump and his regime. But this is some TSA agents will get $10,000 bonuses for shutdown work, Noem says. So Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced Thursday that TSA agents with exemplary service during the government shutdown will receive a $10,000 bonus check. Again, let's talk about our national debt, right? No, we wouldn't need to be doing this if they paid them through the shutdown, but Trump insisted that we don't do that, and even didn't get back pay. But his besties, his favorites, the people who kiss his butt are definitely is mostly going to be people in the military, MAGA type people, ICE agents, that kind of thing. Noem said the bonus checks on the top of their back pay are for stepping up, taking on extra shifts, and showing up each and every day. She announced the bonuses at a press conference in Houston, flanked by agents, and said others across the country would be recognized. We will be continuing to not only recognize employees across the country, but we will be looking at every single TSA official who helped serve during this government shutdown and do what we can to recognize that and help them finally with the bonus check to get them and their family back on their feet. Noem said there were tens of thousands of individuals who stepped up and continued to serve during the last 6 weeks. When asked whether that was referring to those who did not call out sick or stay home for other reasons, Noem said that's not necessarily the parameters. We are going to look at every individual that did exceptional service during this period of time when there were so many hardships. The Department of Homeland Security said it would pay for the bonuses using carryover funds from the fiscal year of 2025. Could have just kept paying people and giving them back pay when the government... you didn't want to do that. Now there's a bunch of people that laid off that you could have pulled the funds from too. Air travel has faced disruptions in recent weeks as the Federal Aviation Administration's limited flights due to air traffic controller staffing shortages and long security lines snarled operations at many airports. President Trump said Monday that any air traffic controllers who called out of work would be substantially docked. He also said he would recommend $10,000 bonuses for those who continue to show up for work despite not being paid during the shutdown. So basically a back pay. You usually get paid pretty well. This isn't political, this is more, science weather based, but La Nina will dominate winter weather, federal forecasters say. And remember, Trump and company shot down a satellite because it gave information that he didn't like. And we defunded and destroyed NOVA. So our ability to really look at weather patterns has been significantly diminished because of that. Climate troublemaker La Nina will play a starring role in the United States winter weather, federal forecasters from the Climate Prediction Center said Thursday. La Nina continued over the past month as indicated by the strengthening of below-average sea surface temperatures across central and eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean. La Nina is part of a natural climate cycle officially known as El Niño Southern Oscillation, what scientists call ENSO. The cycle swings between warmer and cooler seawater in a region along the equator in the tropical Pacific Ocean. La Nina is marked by cooler than average ocean water in the region. This is typically seasonal. or it happens every so many years, El Nino. Those subtle changes can have big ripple effects across the globe's climate, with the cycle at times increasing the chances for rain, drought, hurricanes, and other chaos. The effects vary drastically by region, even within the United States. Although on the weak side, federal forecasters still say this La Nina will be the primary driver of winter weather in the United States. Its impact is likely to be the strongest during the winter season, and so plays a large role in the CPC's recently released winter outlook. Basically, we're going to get hit with an Arctic blast this winter. This is a typical winter La Nina pattern. It's going to really swoop through the Midwest and drop Arctic level temperatures on us. So it's going to get really fucking cold. Now it's repeating itself. It's already talked about that. It's the opposite of the well known El Nino, which occurs when Pacific Ocean water is at least 0.9 degrees warmer than average. Okay. AccuWeather's recently released U.S. winter forecast also pointed to La Nina as one of the key drivers of the upcoming season, according to AccuWeather senior meteorologist and long-range expert Paul Pastelock, I'm not sure how to say his last name, in an online forecast said La Nina conditions will likely affect snow, rain, and temperature trends nationwide. But he emphasized that this year's La Nina appears to be weak, which leaves room for other oceanic factors to influence the forecast. They translate into millions of dollars of economic savings for key sectors like agriculture, energy, health, and transport, and have saved thousands of lives when used to guide preparedness and response actions. Well, remember, Nova's gone. Trump didn't want that. He wanted to give his friends an $8 trillion tax cut, so... CNN, very centristy, neoliberal, so things are pretty crappy. 1 in 4 U.S. households are living paycheck to paycheck. Austin is living paycheck to paycheck and saving almost no money, one of the millions of Americans struggling to make ends meet in the increasingly unaffordable economy. Like I was saying, this is an unsustainable thing that we are doing. No margin for error. Austin, who has a master's degree in fine arts, said he's applied to roughly 1,000 jobs over the past year, everything from teaching to construction, with no luck. That's horrifying. To be 34 and living paycheck to paycheck with no savings, things are pretty crappy. Yep. Everybody's in that boat, living in two different worlds. The Bank of America report is evident of the K-shaped economy, where affluent Americans are faring far better than those at the bottom. Many are struggling to get by, even as President Donald Trump dismisses affordability concerns as a con job conjured up by the Democrats based on fake polls. Like how I knew he was going to do that. He was going to keep continuing to blame Democrats even when there's like barely any Democrats there to blame. It's just like there could be no Democrats anywhere in office anywhere, and if something would go wrong, he would still somehow blame the Democrats for it. Even though that would be just definitionally and descriptively impossible. And he just does not want to take responsibility for this. It's like, Trump, this is your economy. You did this. You stepped in and you fucked over the economy pretty much within 3 months. But the rate of increases in households living paycheck to paycheck has slowed significantly this year. And while there is little change this year for middle and high income housing, the share of lower income households living paycheck to paycheck has jumped from 27% in 2023 to 29%. A growing wage gap. We've known about this. This has been the wage gap has been growing at more and more and more over decades. It's see what I mean? It's so centrist-y neoliberally and gross. Like, you can't just come out and say it. Like, basically, if you are in an income bracket between $0 a year to roughly about $800,000 a year, you are feeling the bite of this economy. Like, that's like 70 or 80% of America's population are feeling this. Like, you can't sit here and play this game. We all see the prices going up, man. Like, coffee's up by 30%. The ranchers are fucked. The farmers are fucked. And even though they're fucked, and we could be buying locally to try to help them out, and still the thing's fucking going up because he wants to buy beef fucking Javier Milei. It's insane. Jones, the primary caregiver for her two grandchildren, was recently diagnosed with cancer and wound up with astronomical medical bills, facing $85,000 in medical debt. Now, that's lucky. My mom has more medical debt than that, and she will probably not pay it off in her lifetime. It's just kind of as a final fuck you when she dies. Like, what are you gonna do about it? The people claiming prices are lower are not actually buying their own groceries or trying to find the cheapest place to get their car fixed. She said they need to walk in our shoes. Yeah, we're fucked. It's not sustainable. And then this I was really interested in. This is interesting. This is a new mark with like our part of why our economy just keeps getting shittier and shittier and shittier and shittier and shittier and shittier and shittier is you know, we keep consolidating power and wealth into these corporations, like looking at apartment complexes, you know, the companies that own apartment complexes. It feels less and less like you're a customer paying a company money for a service that, you know, they try to accommodate you, and more it just feels like feudalism, where you've got these lords that bang on your door and say, give us whatever you have in your treasure trove, or we're going to burn your house down, you know, throw you out on the street. They're becoming extremely strict, extremely authoritarian. They're price fixing. They're gouging the shit out of people. The prices are going to go up even more. And it's just getting to a point, like, it's just sad to me when it's at a point where $50,000 a year is not enough to get a one-bedroom apartment. That's sad. So I'm interested in this. Why hotel room cancellations disappeared? I don't you know, stay in hotels, but I'm curious about this. The Atlantic Daily newsletter that guides you through the biggest... Okay, stop the puffery. Delayed 2 hours, hunched over my laptop in the Dallas-Fort Worth Sea Terminal Admirals Club. I was frantically rearranging my plans. The government shutdown, still ongoing at the time, had caused major disruptions at the U.S. airports. If my flight were canceled, the airline would refund me for my ticket, but my hotel room in Charlotte, North Carolina, appeared to be another matter. I clicked around the booking website on my screen. Its policy and cancellation was austere. I've never heard that word before. I guess I'm going to learn a new word. I'll look that up later. You could void your reservation only if you did so 3 days in advance. If your plans happen to fall through unexpectedly the night before, because let's say your nation's legislator had failed to pass a budget, then you'd be out of luck. Sorry. This felt new. In the past, a hotel booking had been an easy thing to cancel. Up until the day before checking in, you could generally modify your plan without incident and absent any fees. But this no longer seems to be the case. The age of travel flexibility is over. Hotel cancellation has been canceled. The sad story of this change begins in about 2018. Its villain is surprise, the internet. Around that time, third-party travel booking sites began to use a novel method of securing deals known to industry insiders as cancel rebook. Christopher Anderson, a professor at Cornell University, Nolan School of Hotel Administration, told me it worked like this. The sites would let you book a room at the best available price, and then they would keep watching that hotel in the days and weeks that followed to see if its posted rates would ever dip. A hotel might, for instance, drop its prices for last-minute bookings so that fewer rooms were left unfilled. If and when that happened, the travel website's cancel rebooking scheme kicked in. Your reservation would be swapped for the cheaper one. Cancel rebook was great for consumers but terrible for hotels. Properties could no longer reduce their rates to manage unsold inventory without losing already booked revenue to the online travel services. As a result, they started offering a bunch of different rates for the same room with varying degrees of flexibility. Travelers might find that they could book a room at a discounted prepaid rate with no cancellation allowed, or at mid-range rate with a 2 or 3 day cancellation deadline. In some cases, the old until the night before cancellation option would be on offer for a higher rate too. This didn't fully solve the problem of the cancel rebook sites because they could still swap reservations until just before the deadline, but it attenuated the worst effects. Is this on? I didn't see if it was on this one or not. Should be now. From the traveler's perspective, the stakes of such restrictive policies are higher for hotels than they are for airlines. In most cases, if you cancel an airline flight on a major carrier, you can at the very least apply the value of your ticket to a future fare. But canceled too late, and no-show hotel bookings are more likely a total loss. Hotels are not inclined to offer you a credit for your booking, even if they represent a sprawling chain with many thousands of properties. That's because, unlike airlines, most hotels are not centrally owned. If you book the Ithaca Marriott, that would be owned by a franchise, Anderson said. If a local owner has essentially licensed a hotel chain brand for access to its customers, they may have no incentive to provide you with a credit that could be used some other time for a room at, say, the New York Marriott Marquis. In other words, travelers and the online booking service have exploited and unwittingly depleted the shared resource of hotels' flexibility in the hunt for the cheapest possible rooms. It's a tragedy of the commons. Now, all of us are left to hedge our travel plans against the hotels. More restrictive policies, which themselves were hedged against the cancel rebooking schemes. What can travelers do to mitigate the situation? Hotel rates are less prone to drifting up and down than they used to be, Anderson told me. So there may be little cost in waiting to book your room until you are sure you need it, and then choosing the best rate at that time. But even then, an unexpected delay or cancellation can still put you out of pocket. In that case, Anderson recommends a personal plea. Call the hotel, be nice, and explain your circumstances. I think that's pretty given. I mean, the last time I rented a hotel room, I've called them like, oh, hey, I'm on the highway, we're on the way, a little bit behind schedule, we'll be there in like an hour or anything, we're still coming, please don't rent the room out to people. This extended grace certainly sounds delightful, but the entire industry, perhaps the entire world, has been steered away from human interactions of this kind. Automated systems for e-commerce, such as Cancel Rebook, have turned every commercial transaction, ordering pizza, hiring a babysitter, hailing a car, whatever, into an opportunity to insert some technological middleman. Even if I did try to contact a hotel in the event of travel disruption, I'd expect to be funneled into a labyrinth of computerized customer service menus or AI doom chats before anyone could even try to help me out of my predicament. Yep. Good luck to y'all. That's becoming more and more of a thing. Day in, day out. Many different things. Like, we no longer own our media. Like, you don't own your media. You don't. All of it is basically just you're renting it. It's all streamed, and if the people you're streaming it from lose the license because of some kind of corporate merger or something like that, you're just shit out of luck. You're just shit out of luck. So sorry. Nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. That's just becoming our reality. Welcome to feudalism. I've said it so many times. I really do think if you follow libertarian economic philosophy to its final conclusion, what you ultimately end up with is accidentally reinventing feudalism. And that's what we're like I said, this is unsustainable. We need to change the direction we're on. We need socialism. This is not sustainable. You can keep your free market capitalism on crap people don't need. I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find a socialist that says no, we should socialize even that. Most don't even care about that. Like junk food, soda pop, video game consoles, TVs. Like I've never met anyone say we need to socialize those things. Most of it has to do with housing, food, health, utilities. All of it should be, like libraries, police, fire department, all that should be publicly owned, operated, not for profit, but all of it reinvested to make it operate and function as it will. Open to the public, available to everyone, paid for with taxes. Yep. I fully endorse that. Alright, so I'm going to switch back to this screen and see if I can come up with a better mix than what I opened with. That mix that I opened with, I'm not going to lie, that was terrible. That was terrible. That was just terrible. Let's see if we can get a better one going. Let's see, let's try this one. Let's see, we're gonna go with, no. What's this? So, all right. Let's see how that sounds. All right. Like, share, subscribe, comment, bell button, all that. Links in description. And I am trying to work again on another video. Hopefully I'll be able to get that in the process soon. Trying to get caught up with everything sucks. So, anyone who stopped in and watched, thank you for watching and joining. Sorry about yesterday having to go. I ran out of time. Had to go. So, yeah. Yeah, anyway. And enjoy this mix that I just mixed this just now. We'll see how it goes, and can't guarantee you it'll be great or good or anything. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Peace out. Enjoy this. Bye.